Christmas morning, 1996, in Boulder, Colorado, 6-year-old JonBenet Ramsey was found dead in her own home. What followed became one of the most infamous and mysterious murder cases in American history. Nearly 3 decades later, the mystery remains unsolved, and JonBenet's name is etched into the dark legend of true crime. The Ramsey family seemed picture-perfect. John Ramsey was a millionaire businessman who had built a thriving computer company. Patsy Ramsey, a former beauty queen, was admired in social circles for her elegance and charity work. They had 2 children, 9-year-old Burke and 6-year-old JonBenet, a striking little girl who often competed in child beauty pageants. The family lived in a large, comfortable home in Boulder, decorated that Christmas with lights, presents, and festive cheer. But behind the holiday warmth, a nightmare was about to unfold. On the night of December 25, 1996, the Ramseys attended a Christmas party at a friend's house. They returned home later that evening, and JonBenet was tucked into bed. Sometime between that night and the following morning, everything changed. At around 5:30 a.m. on December 26th, Patsy Ramsey awoke and went downstairs. At the bottom of the staircase, she found a 3-page ransom note. The note demanded $118,000 in exchange for JonBenet's safe return. The amount was suspicious. It matched almost exactly John Ramsey's annual work bonus. The letter was filled with odd phrases, shifting tones, and references that seemed more like a movie script than the work of a professional criminal. The ransom note remains one of the strangest in criminal history. It opened with the words, "Listen carefully. We are a group of individuals that represent a foreign faction." The writer demanded that the Ramseys not involve the police or friends, warning that JonBenet's life was at risk. Yet the note rambled on for pages. It wasn't until hours later that John Ramsey went into the basement and made the grisly discovery himself. There, he found JonBenet's body. She had been strangled with a homemade garrote fashioned from a cord and one of Patsy's paintbrushes. Duct tape covered her mouth. The scene was horrific, and yet by the time police returned to the basement, John had already carried her body upstairs, further contaminating any evidence that might have been left behind. The autopsy revealed that JonBenet died from strangulation and a skull fracture. She had also suffered additional injuries, but debate remains over whether they were signs of sexual assault or the result of staging. The garrote used in the crime suggested premeditation and cruelty. Whoever had done this was not acting in panic alone. They had taken time to create a weapon. Forensic evidence offered both hope and frustration. DNA from an unidentified male was found under JonBenet's fingernails and in her underwear. Yet, the technology of 1996 was too limited to draw strong conclusions. Years later, more advanced testing ruled out John, Patsy, and Burke as contributors, but the unknown male profile has never been matched to anyone in criminal databases. Fibers from Patsy's clothing were also reportedly found near the body, but these findings remain disputed. As investigators struggled, the case became a media sensation. Within days, JonBenet's pageant photos were everywhere on TV, in tabloids, and across the internet. Her blonde curls, tiaras, and stage costumes became haunting symbols of innocence lost. The Ramseys gave interviews, pleading for answers, but instead of sympathy, they faced growing suspicion. Many questioned their behavior, noting what some saw as a lack of normal grief. Others criticized their decision to hire lawyers and media consultants so quickly. By the end of 1996, 2 theories dominated the case. The first was the intruder theory. Supporters of this view pointed to the basement window, which showed signs of tampering, and to the DNA evidence. A suitcase was found near the window, possibly used as a step. The intruder theory suggested that someone had slipped into the home, attacked JonBenet, and escaped without a trace. The second was the family theory. Some investigators believed Patsy had written the ransom note to cover up an accident. Others speculated that Burke, only 9 years old at the time, might have struck his sister during a fight, with the parents staging the scene to protect him. These theories relied heavily on inconsistencies in the family's statements and the strangeness of the ransom note. But no solid evidence ever emerged to prove the family's involvement. The years dragged on, and with them came false leads. In 2006, a schoolteacher named John Mark Carr confessed to killing JonBenet. For a moment, the world thought the case was solved. But Carr's confession fell apart when DNA tests cleared him. His disturbing fascination with the case had led him to insert himself into the story, but he was not the killer. Other suspects were investigated, including local neighbors and known offenders, but every lead collapsed. The Boulder police and the district attorney's office often clashed, further weakening the case. By the early 2000s, the investigation had lost momentum, and the truth seemed further away than ever. Meanwhile, the Ramseys' lives were forever changed. Patsy died of cancer in 2006, still insisting on her family's innocence. John Ramsey has continued to speak publicly, maintaining that an intruder killed his daughter. Burke, who was shielded from the public for years, gave a rare television interview in 2016, reigniting debate but offering no new answers. The cultural impact of JonBenet's case cannot be overstated. It has inspired countless books, documentaries, and even fictionalized films. The fascination lies not only in the brutality of the crime but in the contradictions. A wealthy family, a child beauty queen, a ransom note inside the home, and a police investigation filled with errors. Over the decades, several theories have dominated the JonBenet Ramsey case. Each one has its supporters and critics, and each adds new layers of mystery. The intruder. Supporters of this theory point to the unidentified male DNA found on JonBenet's clothing, and to the basement window that appeared tampered with. A suitcase was found near the window, possibly used as a step for someone entering or exiting the house. Advocates believe that a predator targeted the family, slipped inside, and committed the crime before escaping into the night. The biggest strength of this theory is the DNA evidence, which still does not match any family member. The biggest weakness, however, is the lack of signs of forced entry and the sheer improbability of pulling off such a crime in a busy household without being detected. The parents. Some investigators have long suspected John or Patsy Ramsey. They argue that the ransom note was staged, pointing out its unusual length and the fact that it was written on paper from the house. Critics of Patsy have noted similarities between her handwriting and the note. Supporters of this theory suggest JonBenet may have died accidentally, perhaps after a fall or an altercation, and the parents staged a kidnapping to protect themselves. The weakness of this theory is the lack of physical evidence tying the parents to the crime. To this day, no DNA or forensic link has ever confirmed their involvement. Burke Ramsey. A more controversial theory points to JonBenet's 9-year-old brother, Burke. Some believe a sibling quarrel may have turned violent, and that Burke struck JonBenet, leading to her death. According to this theory, the parents then staged the ransom note and the crime scene to protect their son. Supporters argue that Burke's unusual behavior in later interviews fuels suspicion, but critics argue that a 9-year-old would have been physically incapable of staging such a complex crime scene, especially constructing the garrote. The false confessors. Over the years, multiple people have falsely confessed to JonBenet's murder. The most famous was John Mark Carr in 2006, who claimed he was with JonBenet when she died. His confession fell apart under scrutiny when DNA evidence cleared him. This theory highlights another disturbing truth. The Ramsey case attracted obsessives, opportunists, and unstable individuals who only muddied the waters further. The police mistakes. Some believe the truth was lost forever on December 26, 1996. The Boulder police made critical errors in handling the crime scene, allowing people to move freely through the house and contaminating evidence. In this theory, it may not matter whether the killer was an intruder or someone in the family. The mistakes destroyed any chance of solving the case. Nearly 3 decades later, JonBenet Ramsey's death remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in American history. The ransom note, the DNA, the conflicting theories, all of it has kept the case alive in public consciousness. Was she killed by an outsider, someone who slipped into her home undetected? Was her death the result of a family tragedy covered up in desperation? Or was the truth buried forever in the confusion and errors of that first morning? What do you believe? Which theory makes the most sense to you? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more unsolved crime stories.